This conference will now be recorded.
All
Yes,
right.
that's actually a great disclaimer. So, good morning, good evening. Welcome, everyone, to the very first Veeam user group in India. So, I'm excited to be here with Mohamed Ali. And just a little housekeeping this session will be recorded and posted on Veeam's official blogs. So, if you have any concerns with that, wanted to make you aware that as you're participating and being on the call, it's going to get on the internet. So be okay with it. All right. We have some awesome content. I'm going to hand this over to Muhammad Ali, who can go through the slide deck, and I myself will be jumping in and providing some additional goodies along the way. So go right ahead, Muhammad.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Again, welcome everyone to the first VUG India community event. Good to see you all. So we have so far 19 people showed up. Okay, so let's begin with content here. So today agenda, we are going to talk about the introduction about the members, and then what is a disaster, and then how Veeam Backup Replication going to work, and then using Veeam Backup Replication during the disaster. And then we have a summary and recommendation from real life incidents and then best practice. And then we have a Q&A session at the end. Please introduction. Steve, do you want to?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Stephen Panovski, greetings from the USA, President and CEO of VUBX Cloud. We're a cloud provider that's been saving the world since the 90s in data centers and cloud, and we're experts in this area. And we've been using Veeam as a part of our arsenal, as part of our tool set, and it's been quite a journey. You know, I specialize in systems engineer at heart, running Microsoft technologies, but I've pivoted into managing large amounts of storage. And at our cloud practice, it's incredibly important. And I handle all the storage and a lot of the product development alongside the Veeam product. So we use it internally, externally, in any possible way that we can. And I have ventured into the cybersecurity space over the past 7 years and developed from information security into cyber. And this, in conjunction with my background in Veeam and these technologies, have been very instrumental in kind of saving the day for a lot of other companies and organizations across the world, with the help of my wonderful team, including Muhammad Ali. So I'm very excited to be here. This is my favorite product that I've been using almost my whole career. So always happy to talk about it.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, Steve. So myself, Mohamed, I'm the VUG India leader and the managing director of UBX Cloud Private Limited India. And I'm a certified VMCE 2023. And then my specialize in virtualization, cybersecurity, and business continuity. So, like Steven said, we've been, unsung heroes of during disaster and then in recovery scenarios. We have saved a lot of companies and then hospitals from the cyber recoveries. So, I've been working with the Veeam Solutions product since VBR 8 and Veeam Service Provider Console since beginning. I have deployed a large VCSP infrastructure for UBX India and USA. That's it. So disaster happens, right? So either you are a big or a small, any kind of business, the disaster happen, it's expected. So it's not the question of are we safe and secure. So it's about are we prepared for the disaster. So like mentioned, around 80% of the business, they are not prepared during the disaster in case of the disaster trigger at their infrastructure. So this would happen either fire, flood, and storm. And recently, this could be a malware, any ransomware incidents, or it can be corruption, or even if you want to have a complaints, so you need to have the DR.
And on that slide in particular, Mohammed, I think it's incredibly important to see that as we progress, there's going to be more and more of these little icons showing up on the screen, right? So
Exactly.
disaster is not just limited to something physical or something weather related or whatnot. Especially with all the ransomware, with all this business of destroying companies' information to make money, our jobs are the most important, and knowing the software, how to use it, and how to protect with it is extremely important. So, um, you know, businesses aren't always prepared, and that figure looks very accurate. So when you're looking at it from the engineering perspective, look at it from the entire outcome of the business, right? So look at it and say, okay, how can I protect my business from ransomware, from flood? How do I stop my business from having to pay that ransom, right? Or get my business up and running, or so it's you're almost as vital as the decision makers because you're the ones that are going to be recommending and doing. So be aware of the icons that are showing up here and be aware of the new ones down the street.
That's right. So then running regular backups and keeping replicas, running, it's not only enough. So yeah, this sounds good. This may be like better, but that's what it is true. Your backup strategy, it's not a DR strategy. So you may have a backup and then it's running fine, but that's not going to save you from the disaster. So that's very important for you to understand, and then that's why we have this 32110 rule. This is very interesting, important to understand. You should have three different backups of your data in a two different media. So one is a physical, or one is going to be online, offline, and then one data have to be away from your on-site. So in the event you have a ransomware breach, or the kind of any incident you're on-site, you should still able to recover the data from a different medium which is not affected from the primary disaster. So that's why you should have an offsite copy away from on-site, and then that data should be air gapped and then immutable protection. So like I said, the moment of ransomware happens, security breach happen, the first thing hackers will attack your backup data. So in the moment they know that you have the data and backup in place, they know they query all the places, wherever you have the secondary copies available. So all the available data you look into after the disaster happens, right? So they will try to access the secondary copy as well. So that's why it should be air gapped and then offline copy. So this cannot be accessible from your backup server or from within your LAN infrastructure.
Yeah, and Mohammed, on this particular point, I like this quite a bit because the 321, right? That's the part that the hackers are going to look for first. So imagine when they do reconnaissance in these environments, they're looking around. They're going to paint targets specifically at the 321 in this diagram. They'll locate the backup services. They'll paint the little red dot, so then when the attack team comes in, they know where to shoot the missiles, right? And they'll start deleting the offsite backups. So this is one of the most important things to look at, is that as the evolution of their attacks progress, that we have a counter to that. And when I started with Veeam, over a decade ago, right, it was only 321, and before that it was just one copy. So as
Yeah.
the threats evolve, our actual understanding and our reactions evolve as well. So
Yeah. So the
slide,
last
very
one is zero errors. So to make sure you test your backup and then do the periodic testing, and then it's able to recover your data from the backup. So having a backup never tested, it's like not going to be used for you during disaster. So you have to test and automate the recovery functionality, make sure it's able to help you during the disaster. So the common mistakes we do during the disaster, right? So they do not have the proper DR plan. So the first thing, so the moment you realized, okay, we have to have the DR activator, but we don't know how to do it. So there is no proper plan in place first. So what VMs to spin up and how to spin up and what are the destinations going to be. Like there's no plan. tested and then have in place properly. Second thing, the infrastructure. So you have the backups. Let's say it's up to date, but in the moment you have a disaster or on-premise infrastructure not available, you need infrastructure to restore them. So either if your infra is already full, then you cannot able to restore the backups. Then again it's a problem, right? And then restoring backup is going to too much time. I have seen situation when customer they have a terabytes of data for the virtual machine. The restore is going to take a days of days, but your RTOs have to be up in a 5 minutes. In the situation, it's a fail again. So it's like you have to have immediate recoverability. Then RPO and RTO is not met according to business requirements or compliance. Like now the companies are required to bring the business up at the moment of disaster. So either customers cannot wait for a day to bring your business back in online. So the compliance has to be met, and then not having the extra backup copies. So, like Steven mentioned, during ransomware incidents, the hackers try to delete all your existing data. So it's important to maintain a secondary data in away from on-site like air gap or immutable copy, so that we can able to leverage your secondary copy to restore the backup in a disaster. And then testing a DR plan, like I mentioned earlier. So you never test a backup plan and never tested a DR plan. So during the disaster, it's not going to be, happen as your, expertise. So there's going to be a lot of, failure and errors that you'll focus on time fixing the failure instead of bringing your business back.
Yeah, and I think it's important to indicate too here that backup and replication, how you have it on the bottom, are both very important to have. And having the data hot and ready to recover in a secondary environment is always paramount into rapid recovery. But having also that secondary backup that's there just in case if you need to recover something from a previous point in time, or if something doesn't recover properly on the replica side. So always having more options when it comes to recoverability when a disaster strikes is going to be the best option. And you as the engineer looking at this, you know what kind of resources that you need to recover. You know the things, the ingredients that you need to bring the business back to life in the event that something goes south. Now, conveying that to management, emphasizing the risk is something that maybe a lot of engineers might shy away from. But it's really important. Everyone on this call that just sits there and says, okay, how much is our downtime worth? How much is our reputation worth? How impactful could a longer recovery or no recovery be in a situation? And communicating this, reviewing this exact slide right here. What are we going to do when it happens? How do we recover it? What's the process, right? Who's involved? Do we have enough infrastructure, right? Do we have a partner that can help, that is going to be there to assist you, or whose infra you're using, right? So understanding all of those things are just as important as any other strategic decision that a business makes. So it's just your job as users of the software and protectors of these systems to communicate and convey that. So extremely important slide.
Yep. So let's begin with the Veeam replication, how it works. So Veeam replication basically create an exact copy of your virtual machine in a destination hypervisor on a destination host, right? So VBN maintain its original copy of your replication and then sync with the incremental data from the source to destination using the change block tracking mechanism. So either it's a Hyper-V or either it's like a vSphere. So it's replicate the original VM and then the subsequent changes will be transferred only using a change block tracking. And it does provide a minimum RTO in case of disaster. So like previous slide, you can use your backups in case of your RTO is defined for a days. So you can wait till 1 or 2 days, get the restore complete. You can bring the VM online. But you have a minimal RTO time. Let's say you want to bring VM up in a 5 minutes, 5 seconds. Then you should have the VMs active be readily in a DR location. So replication helps. So It is a native snapshot functionality. So either in EXXI or in a Hyper-V, it's use a own native hypervisor format to take a snapshot, replicate the snapshot in a DR location. So the moment a disaster strikes in a production machine, you can power on the replica VM at the disaster strike just in a single right click from the Veeam console. So by that, it won't be no impact or minimal impact on your production site. So this can be immediately bring it online from the DR side. So you can call the replication infrastructure support in on-site or off-site replication. So if the host is being replicated within your same site, like you have either vCenter, vSphere available in EXXA host available within your site, or probably like in your nearby site. So it's an on-site replication. You can replicate within your data centers on your locations. So for the off-site replication, you replicate the entire workload into a different provider, example, a cloud connector, service provider architecture. So that's being sent to another location, like our company, like UBX Cloud. We provide cloud connected infrastructure for a customer who doesn't have the infrastructure. So company cannot afford to build another location for a DR, or it's too challenge for them to maintain the DR location. So in those situations, you can send the replication to offsite, so where the service provider completely manage the DR site. So replication is supported vSphere to vSphere. You can able to replicate from vSphere to vCloud Director. You can replicate, and from vCloud Director to vCloud Director you can replicate. So basically, it has to be hypervisor to same hypervisor. So there is no cross hypervisor support available there. So you can, if it's a VMware, you can able to replicate to VMware architecture. If it's a Hyper-V, you can able to replicate to destination Hyper-V architecture. So this is how replication is going to work. We will show you in a bit how create the jobs and all the settings and everything. So this is basically the architecture, how the Veeam is replicating the virtual machine from source to destination. So here we call it a source host EXXI, and then there is a target host which is in a DR side. So Veeam will read the backup job configuration from the configuration database as a first step, and then it will query all the VMs which is part of the back replication jobs which need to be protected or replicated to the destination side, and then it's querying all the VMs and take a VM snapshot and then use the source proxy to send the data to destination side, and the destination side the EXXA host receive the data using a target proxy, and the target proxy will deposit the data in a EXXA host, and then all the data being replicated in a replica of VM. So it will be active and ready state. So this diagram for an on-site replication, how it works within your data center in case if you have a host and destination on the same side. So this is for the cloud connect replication. So like I mentioned earlier, if the customer or you doesn't have the DR infrastructure, you can send your entire infrastructure copies to service provider. So this is all happen over the WAN. So single SSL communication, where you will offload all your virtual machine snapshots to the service provider infrastructure. Either it's EXXA or Hyper-V, they will have compatible infrastructure at their end. So it will the transaction happen via the cloud gateway and the service provider end. So you can use a service provider architecture. In the moment you want to do it a very easy way, because it's a very simple architecture and you don't have to do much complex configuration on your end. It's again single click DR. So if you want to do DR either partial or a full site failover, you can easily do using the service provider architecture, which we'll cover in a bit.
Yeah, and that's also important too because of the separation. Having a replica in your own environment with like a layer 2 connection or with a VPN or MPLS, while it sometimes is convenient, it's many times is not always the best solution, because if the bad guys are in your environment and they have access to all your systems, there's a good chance they have access to the replicas too. So that's probably one of the most beneficial options with using a Veeam cloud services provider like UBX, where the data is completely separated. It's a completely different network. It's in a completely different geographic location, and you have a separate pair of eyes watching them as well. So very important. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mohammed.
So here is the difference between the on-site replication and the cloud connect replication. So an on-site, 100% you manage and you control the infrastructure, since source and destination will be in your control and your architecture, right? So you store the replica virtual machine within your data center, right? And it's easy to fail or fail back, since you have the control completely, and it's between local to local, and then it's easy for you to do everything control on your place and fail over fail back. That's a very simple way. And it's faster, right? It's because of within on-prem, the transfer speed is going to be fast, because most of the time, the cloud connect infrastructure is going to be WAN, but it's local, it's going to be fast. The initial setup is going to be complex, like I said, because we have to set up a complete infrastructure at the DR side. So you need to set up either it's a EXXA host, you have to expand the network at the DR side, and then set up accordingly your requirements, and it's going to cost you high at the initial, so it's going to be higher opex model, and it's a limited resilience in terms of security. So when it's in a local, when your primary is infected, there is most chances that your DR also going to be infected if it's in the same site, unless it's a hardware failure. So if there's anything related to security incident, of course the security, the attacker is going to target your DR site as well if they can able to reach easily. And it's P2P or VPN tunnel, since it's between your sites. If you look at the Cloud Connect architecture, it's a completely managed by service provider, where you don't need to worry about DR infra. It's entirely managed by them, including power, cooling, security. Entire stuff is handled by them. And the replica data, it's stored in a service provider structure, so in their storage array. So this is also easy to fail or fail back, since you are not relying on your hardware compatibility. It's like going to be on a service provider architecture, and the data transfer is going to be dependent on the bandwidth. Like I mentioned, this is going to be happen over the internet. So the data transfer speeds rely on how much good bandwidth you have, on-premise to service provider architecture. And the setup is very minimal, so all you need to add the service provider architecture and your Veeam console. So they simply give you the username, password, and then URL to connect the gateways. So as simple as that. So then once you set up, then it's all ready. And this is
Yeah,
the get. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead, Steve.
Like when you're looking at it from a how fast do we need to get this up and running, right? Uh, from management or whatnot, and it's like, okay, well, we need all these capex orders, we need all this procurement, consulting, all these things for the on-premise component and the secondary component. By leveraging a cloud service provider like UBX and leveraging the Cloud Connect technologies, you simply place the order and get the information. So you have the three pieces of information that you need: the host name, and then the credentials, and everything on the back end gets provisioned by the service provider side. So it's a very easy way and quick way to get something up and running, and getting it done fast and predictable. So just want to
Yeah.
highlight that.
Thank you, Steve. Exactly. And then it's completely secure, right? It's air gapped backup. So once the replication is done, so you'll be disconnected completely from your on-site to the service provider infrastructure. So it's 100% separated. So in fact, anything impacted your on-prem, it's not going to be access your service provider architecture or the replica VMs, which is living in a cloud. So this is all internet. So there is no dependency on having to P2P connectivity or any kind of VPN connectivity to have within a service provider architecture.
Awesome.
All right. So as you see, this is how the Veeam use native snapshots as a restore points. So on the left side, it is for the VMware. So if you can see, there is a lot of restore points created, right? So this is a point in time. You can able to, so let's say if you create a everyday replication, so it will create every restore point as per your RPO time. And here is a Hyper-V, it uses checkpoints, similar how it is creating on the VMware snapshots, create checkpoints according to your RPO timeline. So we'll show you how to create replication jobs from the VBR console. So this is example, the snapshots for the vSphere. You right click on the vSphere, create a new replication jobs, and you'll define the job name. And there are some advanced options available here, as it is replica seeding, network mapping, which I will cover in respective slides and the job options. So you will select the source machine from your vSphere infrastructure. And then here, the destination, you have to decide whether it's going to be either your on-site or it's going to be service provider architecture. So if you have a DR site, your on-site, you will choose which host or which vSphere it's going to be replicated. If it's the service provider, you will see service provider architecture name here. So that's a difference you will see between on-site and the service provider. And resource pool, VM folder, data store, which would be default if it's the service provider architecture, because you don't have control of what data store it's going to be landed, everything, which will be controlled by service provider. If it's at your infrastructure, then you can decide which data store the DR has to be live in, which folder you want to deposit, and what are the resource pool on the DR side you want to put the replica VMs. And here you can do the network mapping. So this is the method you can able to remap your network. So most of the situation, you may not able to have the same subnet on your DR site, or probably it's like a different subnet at the DR site, correct? So when you do the DR, so all the VMs at the disaster recovery site, the replica VMs will be spinned up, and then we'll get a new IP according to your the DR site. So you can define what is the source network of the virtual machine in a source side, and what will be a target network when it is spinned up in the DR side. So we will automatically boot up the machine as per your settings at the DR side. So this is only applicable for the Windows machine. Linux machine, you have to run a post job script to change IP address, but Windows, it will happen automatically, part of the backup DR failover scenario. So you will just, what is the source IP? You will just define a target IP here. So and then metadata, so this will store the job metadata, configuration, everything in a local repository. This is a proxy at the target site. You have to have a proxy at the target site to receive the replicas from the source side. And you can use either direct connection, or you can use a WAN accelerators. So the WAN accelerator help a lot when you have a poor bandwidth between your two sites. So the primary purpose of the WAN accelerator, it is not reduce the time for you. It is actually reduce the amount of data being transferred from the source to destination. So let's say you have a 1 TP virtual machine, you have only 5 Mbps connection. So the amount of time going to be take between the source and destination for the replication job is going to be a lot. Even with the incremental data, it's going to be heavy. So WAN accelerator, what it provide, so it will analyze from the source and destination what are the changed blocks happen between source and destination, and it is analyzed with what are the data I already have on the storage level. So it only take the changed bits from the storage level, not as the even VM level. So it only understand, analyze whatever the changed blocks from storage, and then it will able to rebuild rest of the similar data within existing backups available. So it construct everything together, and then it will send it to the DR side. So you will see the lot of data will be reduced using WAN accelerator, but the time will remain the same. So if the job is going to take 1 hour, the 1 hour remains same, but the amount of transfer with the regular direct connection is going to be a 5 GB. You will see the WAN accelerator probably 500 MB. So that's a difference.
Yeah, and with the WAN accelerator, this is also a prime example of where Veeam innovates. When we, as the users and the service provider side, were asking for features to improve the time it took for the customer's data to get to us, they came out with this this concept and this feature, and it's been fantastic. So seeing Veeam evolve with the needs of the customer and the needs of the service provider throughout the journey has been wonderful. And this technology is there because for people who may not have the best internet connection, this is an excellent way to get the most out of what you do have.
That's right. Okay. So previously we saw the seeding and mapping options. So Seeding, again, it's one of the wonderful method being introduced. So assume that you have, let's say, 5 TB of virtual machine in any of your file server, and you want to replicate your disaster recovery site, and you don't have enough bandwidth, or you have less bandwidth. So the initial replication time is going to be take days and days. So in order to avoid initial replication, gonna take a lot of time, you can able to use your existing backup data or copy data that's already reside at the DR site. You can use the data to restore the initial VM from that backup, and then send the only the changed blocks from the original VM source to destination. So that way, Veeam will read the data from the backup job and restore the VM from the backup repository, and then build the initial VM. And whatever the change happened at the source, it will compare and then transfer only the changes to the replica, so then it will become up to date. So that's what is initial seeding. So we often do the seeding option because we cannot able to directly transfer the customer data over the WAN most of the situation. So since we already have the data of customer, and then we'll use the data to restore the VMs, and then map this the initial seeding. So it's like they only transfer the changed blocks. And then
Yeah,
another,
and
yeah.
on the service provider side and from the user perspective as well, this is awesome because with offsite backups and with replicas, like Mohammed mentioned, the data sizes are often very large, and it will take a long time to send the data. So by we get shipments of NASs and hard drives all the time to ingest the data first, and then link up those backups to the customer side, and then only the deltas get sent over. And that's applicable for both backups and replication. So that's an important understanding there. And like I said, the Mohammed said, the benefit there is the ability to quickly get these backups where they need to go, and then use the internet connections once that's completed to just send the deltas over. It's incredibly efficient, saves a lot of time, and often underutilized. Right? Like I want to convey this in particular because this is such a time saver, and being able to see the data offsite and then being able to get the data, get it back as well. We call that restore to door. So those are both mechanisms that are extremely important. Not necessarily for a replication job, but mostly for like offsite backup, where a customer wants a large chunk of their backups, shipped to them or whatnot. Those options are available, and it's extremely beneficial. And this technology that Veeam provides makes it happen.
Yeah, that's right. And then you can also able to map the existing replica, which is already available at the DR side. Just in case if you have the VMs available at the DR side, you can use the same data, and then you can map the VM. So then you can continue the jobs with do only the increment up. And then you can schedule the jobs accordingly, and you have the CBT, which is like VMware technology, where you can able to do the 5 minutes RPO. So you can go as low as 5 seconds of RPO. You can able to sync the data from the source to destination. It's available. Okay. Now the failover. So we'll see how you can able to fail over to the DR side in the event you have disaster occurs to your production side. So the first thing is a failover. So this is a manual failover in case if you want to perform, move a production workload from the source to the DR side. So this is like a manual process, like mentioned. So in this process, you have to power up the source VM manually, and then bring the TRS available. So this is not going to happen automatically like a planned failover. So in this failover, you need to make sure that the source VM turned off, and then you initiate the manual failover, and then manual the replica at the DR side will bring on will be available online. So this is a simple process, like a three wizard. So you choose a virtual machine, and then provide a reason to restore, for a DR, and then select the available restore point you want to, bring it back online. These are all available point in time. you select the latest one or only back 2 days ago, and then finish it. So as soon as if you hit the finish, so we will try to power on the machine at the target vSphere, and then just map the network according your the remapping the job configuration which we did during the job wizard. So this will bring a VM available as quick as possible. So the next option is a planned failover. So this is normally you choose when the scenario you have a planned failover. Like mentioned, you going under maintenance, any data center maintenance at your primary infrastructure, or there is flood is going to be coming on. So you're going to be proactively offload, shift your entire workload from primary site to the secondary destination. So those situations you could have used a planned failover. So during the planned failover, it's like it is power of your primary infrastructure, and then it will transfer entire data, whatever data is being written on your source to the destination. So it work very seamlessly. So another important point during the failover and planned failover, you're running it every workload in a DR site. So if you want to fail back, you need to make sure you do proper failback, which we'll cover in a bit, because whatever data you're writing or whatever doing on the DR mission, it's not committed at the source side. So you need to be very cautious in case of you're canceling or doing anything at the DR side. We'll cover the failover back in a bit. So this is a permanent failover. So this is mostly happen when you want to decommission your existing infrastructure from the primary site. You want to switch everything from one location to another location permanently. So Veeam will power off the source VM completely and then transfer all the data to the replica VM, and then it's replicate every change blocks to the replica VM. Once it is done, it will power on the replica VM, and then it will power down the source. Also, it will also, for the precaution, make sure it is remove the source VM from the replication jobs in order to the replication job trigger again, then it will do another the mess up with the replica VM. So proactively it is remove the source VM from the existing replication job, and then keep everything shut at the primary site. So like I said, every restore point will be removed from the vCenter. So whatever the delta snapshots, as per the point in time you're selecting, that's a permanent VM state. It's going to be maintained at the DR site. So source become replica, and the replica VM becomes source. Like a vice versa, it will change.
Nice. And with any of these options, this is, you can use this through the console and you can make the decisions on what makes the most sense for your scenario, right? Like depending on the circumstances or what you're trying to achieve. But the nice thing about this, and this goes out to Vitaly and the product team over at Veeam, is that you can also, if you're leveraging a service provider cloud, you can also log into the service provider console or have management log in and see the progress of that recovery, right? Or actually activate that recovery. So you don't need to, you don't need to necessarily have, you do it from your console side, or the service provider does it from their console side, but you can actually do many of these functions right from the Veeam service provider web console as well. So that's that's an underutilized technology and feature that's available, and an innovation that when people see that, then they're like, wow, this is great. Like it's great to have all these options and have that visibility while the failovers are happening.
That's right. Okay. So this is for the situation. So let's say you do the failover everything, to test the DR plan. So part of your cycle. So you just tested everything. It is working fine, but you don't want to bring any changes back to the production infrastructure. So those situations you can do undo failover. So undo failover is just like a cancel everything whatever you did during the failover process. It simply shut down on the replica VM, cancel everything whatever happened, then it does bring the source VM online. So it's like going back to the previous state at the source VM.
So for your flood scenario, scenario, Mohammed, this would be the okay, Chennai is flooded. Let's do a replication failover to Bangalore, and then the floodwaters recede, and then you fail back right to the primary location. So
Yeah, but important point, when you do undo failover, no data being returned on the replica VM will be bringing back to the source VM.
okay, so for that would be a good option for testing then. Sorry,
Yeah,
but
it
for
was only for testing. So, example, you do file server or you Active Directory server. So, you activate a failover, like you just like everything's fine, and then okay, testing fine. Now I want to cancel because we don't want to bring any changes back because we never done any changes. Part of testing, right? You can do simply cancel the failover. Everything's fine, back to normal.
awesome.
Okay, so this is a failback. So this is a process. You have done a failover. You've been working, making all the changes at the replica VM. Now it's a time you reconstructed everything at your source location. Let's say the hardware corruption isn't fixed. You bought a new hardware, or you got all the ransomware. The thing is completed. You build a new, complete, fresh, new infrastructure. Now you want to bring the workload from running a DR location to primary location. So that's a process of feedback. So either you can do a quick feedback, assume that nothing has happened, like you did a part of testing and then you've been using the DR machine for a week and then you want to bring it back, you can do the quick recovery. So what it does, it use existing data at the source side, it will only transfer back the changed blocks, like how it transferring incremental. So it does it do the reverse direction. So whatever the data being changed during the disaster recovery, and it will transfer the data back to the source side. So it's very quick and easy. So or you assume that you build everything from the scratch. So there is no data available at the source location. So that is also possible. You can able to restore the VM back to the source location as a complete new VM. So that's going to take some more time. It depends, but it depends of your hardware, the compatibility as well as the configuration you have. But you can able to also restore the entire VM instead of only doing the incremental back. So this is how you can do the failback. So failback to production, and here you can choose either you will fail back to the original VM. Like I said, you just done only testing. You want to fail back to the same VM. You can only sync the changed blocks. So it will analyze what the data already is present on the original VM and what is not present part of the the new incremental, and then it will only change incremental data once it is verified. And the second option, you can do the original VM is not more available. You newly constructed the vSphere infrastructure, and then you can restore the VM in different data store and wherever you want to build, as per your hardware available at the source location now. And then fail back to specific location. This is the same option, but you have more control of choosing a data store, choosing the host, and choosing the VM folder and everything. And then fail commit. So this is very important because when you do fail back, so we will transfer all the changed blocks, changed data from the replica VM to the source VM. But in order to keep the data, you need to commit. So if you do to commit, so we will cancel whatever changes everything and then again revert. But like again you will went back to the DR scenario, right? Because most of the time we will analyze, make sure every data is intact according to your source and destination, and then it transferred the changed blocks like a delta disk to the source location. Once is everything done, you verified, you have to make sure you commit the feedbacks, then only we will do the final commit. Okay, it will now whatever it's running in the replica VM, it's transferred to the source VM. Now source is the production machine. Replica VM is back to the DR site. So as it is a DR. So commit failback is very must. So and then you can plan a fail, or you can create a failover plan. Failover plan is basically like a automation. You can do the failover in order. So let's say you have a application VM, database VMs. So that has to be bring online order, right? So you want to bring a application first, or you want to bring a database first and then application in second. So you can define here which VM should bring online first, and then which VM will come, next to that. So I can define everything here, and then create the failover plan. The moment you want to do the failover, you can just simply play the failover plan. It does everything as per your plan here. It will go and check every VM you defined here. It will process one by one accordingly your schedule. Okay, so here is the consideration. Like I mentioned earlier, you can only replicate on the same hypervisor. You cannot do VMware to Hyper-V, Hyper-V to VMware. It has to be in the same hypervisor. And in case of vSphere, you have to have the same hardware version. So you have hardware version 7 in on-site. If you have hardware version 5 in the disaster recovery side, this is not going to be work, right? You need to have the same hardware version at the both DR and source side. In case of you're replicating to the service provider architecture in a cloud connect, you must have a network extension appliance. So basically, in network extension appliance, it provide a VPN connectivity between your source location to service provider location in the event of you're initiating DR, because there is no any connectivity between your source and destination, right? So you're transferring data, everything over WAN. So the moment you initiate the disaster recovery, you need some sort of connectivity between your location to the service provider location. So that's where extension appliance will come into place. So it will enable the SSL connectivity between your location to data center provider location within your VMs. So it's like act like a virtual VPN. So you have to have it deployed in your on-premise architecture if you're sending your data to the cloud connect. And then the ports. So from vSphere to vSphere, and then vSphere to VMware. So on the Veeam proxy size, there are certain ports are required. You have to make sure all these ports are open in properly. Otherwise, you'll end up with like a replication works or DR may not be work as expected. So same goes for Hyper-V. So you have to have equivalent configuration version, and then the host version also must be equal at the source and destination. So this is applicable for both Hyper-V and then VMware. So here is the summary of recommendation. Steve, you want to go?
Sure, absolutely. Have the plan in process. Go through, speak with the decision makers, speak with your teams, get an understanding of what it means what is a successful disaster recovery plan from their eyes, and then you take those recipes or those instructions, and then you go back into your kitchen and set this up the way that the business is requiring it. And understand that what's inside of those virtual machines are, what core applications, what teams are responsible for assisting in the management of it. And whether you're a small business or a large enterprise, the solution scales. So looking at, like the replication diagram that Mohamed provided, all those components that were on the diagram were like 6 or 7 different roles, but it was split up depending on the particular role and where it existed in the environment, whether it was on the customer side or service provider side or customer side and secondary customer side. So you might have all those roles on one server if you're a small organization. And if you're a large organization, you might have multiple. So understanding the architecture and understanding the DR requirements and how to recover this data is really important. And the whole purpose of this group is to ask and engage and to learn how to use the software to get positive business outcomes. And getting those stakeholders and getting management involved and getting all the other teams is really, really good way of saying, okay, what does a successful recovery look like to everyone in this room? And then you taking that and making it happen. Let's see. The the disaster recovery with the Cloud Connect option is much simpler, and there's a lot less uplift from the client side. So leveraging a service provider, leveraging their teams and their capabilities, and keeping that separation of networks is also very beneficial. And in a lot of ways, it's a lot more cost effective. Um, and understanding, not just from the business side and from the where the data's at side, right? But also orchestrating and having that run book, right? Like, what is the process that we need to follow in case that emergency is called, right? Chennai floods, office is offline. What's the first step? What's the first button? Who do we call? And having that process and having the tools and then the support system to help you is really paramount to getting recovery done as quickly as possible. And you never want to be that person who is responsible for recovering all of this, and then not have all the answers, and not have all the understanding of what's needed to bring that back. And that's why I mentioned, like, not all heroes wear capes, right? Like, we may be the most important people on the other side of this conversation when the threat actor is demanding the ransom, and you have the responsibility of recovering the environment. Otherwise, the ransom has to be paid. So leverage the group, and make sure that that you utilize these tools and the software and the brains around it to your advantage.
That's right. And then finally, most important, it must be up to date. So don't forget to test your TR. Like keeping a backup and keeping a replica, it's running fine. It doesn't mean that you'll have a successful disaster recovery
Yeah,
plan.
and make sure what you're backing up is like is actually what you need to back up is actually being backed up. A lot of times, certain in larger companies, especially, certain teams will start building out infrastructure, rolling out applications, rolling out solutions, and if it doesn't get properly communicated to the people who are managing these systems, then they may not even be a part of the backup or a part of the replica job. So there's actually some great functionality in the Veeam software and the service provider portal side that shows, hey, this is what I have, this is what we're backing up, what else needs to be added or removed. The business still needing these, or is the business changing and need to add some things? Was there an acquisition? Was there an expansion? Those are important questions, and it comes a lot from our side on the technical side as well to ask those proactively.
Yeah. So we have seen a situation when customer, like they have up to date backups or up to date DR. So when the moment they initiate the failover or restore the virtual machine from the backup, the desired outcome will not be same exactly what they want, because the VM will up and running, but example, the SQL database is not mounted properly, or DB is not properly shut down, or Exchange database is not crash consistent. Like these are important. That's like a previous slide mentioned. Protect your application, not just only the VM. So that's why it's important to test your backup on DR. Make sure is it's fine, part of your disaster recovery plan. Otherwise, with just backups with having replica up to date, it's not going to be useful the moment you have the hit the disaster.
Yeah, and on our side, what I've seen is, like I mentioned, having both the replica and the backups. Like, they're, even though they're two separate objectives and two separate sets of data, a lot of times, we'll be in a situation where you're right, the database comes up dirty, or there was a problem with it, and hey, we can go back and we can pull those SQL logs from the backup, from last night's backup or last week's backup, like whatever whatever the client wants, and that is extremely beneficial to have both sets, right? So it's important to be able to use everything that you have at your fingertips to recover, because not all situations are going to be the same.
That's right.
And it looks like we've got some questions, Mohammed. Yeah, it looks like in the chat.
Yeah.
I see.
Any
Yeah. I guess is doing a very good job on responding to them. But yes, so let's look at the three different mediums and why, like why that's important. Um, back in when I first started my career, right? It was disc and tape. So if something happened to the discs, if there was corruption on the drives, if there was mechanical failure, we had a copy on another set of discs, and then we also had a copy on the tapes. So if there was a problem with the drives, a problem if there was a power issue at the data center or earthquake or whatever, and the discs were damaged or the medium was damaged, then we just go to tape because they're solid state and they don't suffer from those kinds of issues. And having different kinds of medium, which in our day and age in 2024 means you know file-based storage on a Windows file share, or NAS, or object storage on an object storage provider's environment, or even still tape, right? Having multiple copies on different mediums are important in case the medium is the point of failure, and that has happened. So, um, yeah, important option to consider. Good question. Please keep them coming. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, looks like that was covered already. Good job again, Wakisali. And anything else, right? I mean, we're here to kind of empower and educate everyone in the group, and that collaborative aspect of this is really important. And we use the software every day. We know every corner of how to use it, what's the best to use it. This is what we do. So you know, feel free to raise your questions and even ask about scenarios. Like, hey, I work in manufacturing and I have a 20 lakh an hour downtime cost. How do I use? What's the best way to recover my systems, or what are the best options for me? Have these discussions. They open up really great avenues of conversation. And the wonderful thing about Veeam is it's a tool that, especially in my tool belt, whatever the recovery scenario is, it opens and gives me multiple options on how to recover it. Like it knows if I'm backing up an AD server that I have Active Directory objects that I can restore, or an Exchange server where I have mailbox to restore. So knowing some of those nuanced things, and being prepared for it is you're going to make yourself the hero in your organization when you're able to use these tools not only effectively but the best one for the job. So let us help you get there. Thanks, Mohammed. You did a wonderful job on presenting. Mohammed?
Okay. Next question from the Senthil Panti. We do not have a replica server due to the budget constraint. We have a backup server. In this case, how we can prepare the DR plan?
Well, that would, I mean, honestly, the easiest option would be to engage with a cloud services provider. I mean, obviously, we're a little biased here, but going into this and having a conversation with someone who understands uh, what you're trying to accomplish. And on the UBX side, we'll say, okay, we'll look at your environment, we'll look at your specifications, and we'll size it accordingly. And we have a very simple model for this. It's just based off offsite SAN storage, and uh, and we can create the plan for you. And a lot of times, it's a lot more economical than having to build software or build servers and build infrastructure and set up firewalls and set up DR sites and connectivity. Like I said, it's like earlier in the slide deck, it was like three pieces of information. So very, very simple. I encourage you to even speak to your colleagues here, speak to us at UBX, and we can kind of walk you through the process. Good question though, too. Mhm. and even for backups, right? So like having like that, we just talking about replicas as well, but for backups is it's good as well. Like not having to set up a second repository elsewhere, being able to increase the capacity, right? Being able to increase the quotas on our side, and being able to restore into a private cloud like ours. Um, as much as I appreciate the public cloud providers, unfortunately, you're kind of left to your own devices to restore in those environments. And a lot of times it isn't very cost effective. So working with a service provider or working with someone who can deliver this in a much more cost effective option is going to be good, because sometimes companies just, it's like they can't afford it, right? So they're like, okay, like this is all I have. What's the best outcome that I can make with what's available to me? And like I said, with Veeam, the tools are there for you to choose. So I hope that was informational, and I hope to see more of everyone in the group. So tell all your friends, tell your colleagues, if you want to know the best way to recover, and the best scenarios and the best outcomes with the best software, here is the right people to talk to and the right brains in the room. So keep it coming.
There's another question from Kaz Ali about he wants to know about VR or Veeam Recovery Orchestration. Sure, Ali, of course, definitely. So, in interest of the time, probably we can connect later. We can go over the orchestration. This is more like a automation platform for the disaster recovery. So we can cover probably, or we may have another session to go in detail about the Veeam orchestration.
Yeah, that's actually a
So
good idea. Reviewing an example recovery plan. Like how does the outside access our environment, right? How are these servers used? How do like what are the outcomes that we need to achieve? So
yeah.
I think that we can probably put something together for that, Mohammed, and maybe show one that's redacted and demo it.
Sounds good. I think yeah. If things done, this meeting.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining. And Mohammed, what is the cadence for upcoming events? Is it going to be monthly?
We'll announce them in a community group shortly.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, like I said, spread the word, get the knowledge out there. We gotta empower ourselves to protect our organizations and minimize that risk. So thank you everyone for joining. Mohammed, excellent job. Everyone, thank you, and
All right.
enjoy
Thank
your
you for joining.